Sorry, I accidentally ran over your $5,800 e-bike with Dad's truck, my sister said, after I refused to pay for her son's summer camp. Dad added, your kid can walk like everyone else. I did not yell. That night, I removed one card and closed one door. But at 7:09 a.m., my sister saw the red notice and started shaking. The front tire was flat against the driveway like a black tongue, and the frame was bent at the down tube in a way that metal only bends when something heavy rolls over it slowly. I was standing at the kitchen window with a glass of water in my hand when I saw my sister's shadow cross the driveway. Not walking. Driving, she was behind the wheel of our father's F-250, a truck she did not own and was not insured to drive, and she pulled it out of the street and into my driveway at an angle that put the front passenger tire directly over the spot where my daughter's e-bike had been parked since 3:30 that afternoon. The bike was a Radrunner Plus, matte black, fat tires. A cargo rack I had bolted on myself so Cora could carry her backpack and her soccer bag without wearing both. $5,800 from a dealer in Columbus, paid in full from my checking account on Cora's 11th birthday, because the school was 2.3 miles from the house and the bus route added 40 minutes each way, and my daughter deserved to ride. The truck rolled over the bike the way trucks roll over things they are aimed at. Not fast, not an accident of speed or angle or misjudgment. Slow, deliberate, the front tire climbed the rear wheel first, popping the spokes like matchsticks. Then it crushed the battery housing, cracking the lithium cells inside with a sound like a plastic container being stepped on. Then it folded the frame at the down tube weld, the strongest joint on the bike, the joint that holds the steering column to the body, and the metal bent with a groan that I heard through the kitchen window glass. The truck came to rest with the handlebars pinned under the bumper, and the front wheel turned sideways, and the cargo rack I had bolted on twisted at an angle that meant the bolts had sheared. The brass bell on the handlebar, the ladybug-shaped bell Cora had picked out herself at the bike shop, because she said it made the bike feel like hers, popped off the mount and rolled across the concrete and stopped against the garage door with a single ring. The bell survived. The bike did not. Noelle got out of the truck. She did not look at the bike. She did not look at the kitchen window where I was standing with a glass of water going warm in my hand. She pulled her phone from her pocket, took a photograph of the damage from 2 angles, and then walked to my front door and knocked twice with the knuckle confidence of a woman who had just destroyed $5,800 worth of her niece's property and was ready to explain why it was deserved. I opened the door. Sorry, Noelle held up both hands, palms out, the gesture people make when they want forgiveness to arrive before the explanation. I accidentally ran over Cora's bike with Dad's truck. I didn't see it. You drove a truck into my driveway and parked it on top of a bike that was visible from the street. It was an accident. You photographed it before you knocked. Noelle's hands came down. The performance shifted. The sorry face dissolved into the face underneath it, the face of a 29-year-old woman who had called me 3 days ago and asked me to pay $400 for her son Trey's summer camp at Scioto Grove, and who had heard me say no, and who had spent 72 hours converting that no into a reason to drive a truck over my daughter's bicycle. If you had just paid for camp, none of this would have happened. Trey is 9 years old. He needs to be with other kids this summer. He needs structure. And you sit in this house with your lineman salary and your fancy bike for your kid, and you tell me you cannot afford $2,400 for your own nephew. I told you I would not pay for camp. That is different from cannot. It is the same thing to a 9-year-old who asked his uncle for one thing. Trey did not ask me. You asked me. And when I said no, you drove Dad's truck over my daughter's bike. The truck sat in the driveway with the bike under it. The front tire was still on the frame. The battery housing was cracked and leaking blue fluid onto the concrete. The cargo rack I had bolted on was twisted 45 degrees from the frame, and the bell was against the garage door, brass catching the late afternoon light. The only piece of the bike that still looked the way it did when Cora unwrapped it 5 months ago and rang it 11 times in a row, because that was how old she was, and she wanted the whole street to know. Noelle's sedan pulled into the curb behind the F-250. Vic Ryland got out of the passenger side. He had followed in Noel's car, which meant he had driven behind the truck the entire way, which meant he had watched his daughter drive his truck into his son's driveway and aim it at a bicycle, and he had followed her there to make sure the job was done. The truck was not borrowed. It was dispatched. And the dispatcher had followed the delivery in a separate vehicle to supervise. Vic walked up the driveway and looked at the bike under the tire. He did not flinch. He did not apologize. He looked at the crushed frame the way a man looks at a job that has been completed to specification. Your kid can walk like everyone else. A $5,800 bicycle for an 11-year-old is showing off. Noel's boy does not have a bicycle at all. He does not have camp. He does not have a father who comes home every night and buys things to make himself feel like the big man. Your kid can walk. Cora was in the living room. The front door was open. She heard every word. I know because when I turned around, she was standing in the hallway with her soccer bag on her shoulder and her face, doing the thing that 11-year-old faces do when they hear their grandfathers say their bike was showing off and their cousin's need is more important than their loss. She was not crying. She was calculating. Children calculate faster than adults think they do. I looked at my father. I looked at my sister. I looked at the truck on the bike and the bell against the garage door, and my daughter in the hallway, and the battery fluid spreading on the concrete like a stain that would not come out. I am not going to yell, I said. I want you to remember that I did not yell. I closed the front door. I picked up the bell from the garage floor. The brass was warm from the sun, and the ladybug shape was intact, and the clapper inside still rang when I turned it in my hand. I put it in my jacket pocket. Then I went inside and sat at the kitchen table with my daughter and told her that her bike was gone and her uncle was wrong and her father was going to handle it. And handling it would not involve yelling, because yelling is what people do when they have nothing else, and I had everything else. Welcome to Family Secret Tales, where the man who does not yell is the one who files the paperwork. If you have ever watched someone destroy your child's property and call it a lesson, subscribe now. Because tonight, I am removing one card and closing one door, and by morning the lesson will belong to them. My name is Beck Ryland. I am 33 years old. I am a power line technician for Central Ohio Electric, which means I climb 40-foot poles in thunderstorms and work on live wires that carry enough voltage to kill me 6 times before I hit the ground. I have been doing this for 12 years. My salary is $94,000 a year, which my family calls good money for pole work. As if the work were simple and the money were lucky. As if a man who maintains the electrical grid for 340,000 homes in Central Ohio does not deserve the same respect as a man who drove a UPS truck for 30 years and retired with a pension and a Ford F-250 he uses to crush children's bicycles. My family has 2 categories for Ryland men. There is Vic's category, visible, respected, pensioned. The man who drove a truck with a company logo and retired with a party. And there is Beck's category, the man who climbs poles, the man whose work happens above the tree line where nobody watches, the man who keeps the lights on in 340,000 homes and comes to Thanksgiving dinner with calluses on his palms and voltage burns on his forearms and gets asked by his father when he is going to find a real career with a desk. Noel falls into a 3rd category that nobody in my family names aloud, the one who needs. Noel has needed since she was 19, needed rent, needed a co-signer, needed groceries in March, needed a babysitter in August, needed the car insurance payment that I have been making for 24 months from a credit card she does not know the number of because she has never had to know it, because the bill has never bounced, because I am the man who pays. She has been unemployed since February. She was let go from a veterinary receptionist position after 3 no-call no-shows in January. She has not applied for a new job in 4 months, or had not, until the insurance lapsed and the consequences of having no income became heavier than the comfort of avoiding it. Trey's father has been out of the picture since Trey was 4, which means Trey has been fatherless for 5 years, which means Noel has been raising a boy alone for 5 years. which is hard, and which I understand, and which does not excuse driving a truck over a child's bicycle because that child's father said no to a summer camp. Noelle lives in a 2-bedroom apartment on Sullivan Avenue that she cannot afford alone because the rent is $175 and her unemployment check stopped in May. She lives there because I co-signed the lease 14 months ago when no landlord would approve her application based on her income and credit alone. My name is on that lease. My credit score is what keeps her housed. My signature is the reason the management company approved an applicant with a 540 credit score and no verifiable income. Without Beck Ryland on that lease, Noelle Ryland does not live on Sullivan Avenue. She lives on Vic's couch. And the couch is the threat that keeps me signing. Because every time I hesitate, someone in the family says, "Do you want Noelle and Trey on Dad's couch?" And the couch becomes a weapon, and my signature becomes the shield, and nobody ever asks me if the shield is heavy. It is heavy. It has been heavy for 3 years. I also pay her car insurance. 2 years ago, Noelle's policy was canceled after she missed 3 consecutive payments. She could not get a new policy without a payment method that would not bounce. She asked me to put my credit card on her account just until she got back on her feet. 2 years, $290 a month, $6,960 in premiums for a woman who just drove an uninsured on her end truck over my daughter's e-bike and called it an accident. I also rent the storage unit where Vic keeps his truck. Dad's apartment complex does not allow oversized vehicles in the lot. The F-250 is too tall for the parking garage. 3 years ago, I rented a unit at Eastside Self-Storage on Broad Street, $175 a month. Climate-controlled, gated access, key code entry. The key code is mine. The rental agreement is in my name. The unit is mine. And the monthly invoice is mine. $175 times 36 months equals $6,300 in storage fees for a truck that my father just used to teach my daughter a lesson about walking. Loomis called me at 7 that evening. Loomis has been my crew lead at Central Ohio Electric for 9 years. He trained me on my first pole when I was 21 years old and did not know the difference between a hotline and a neutral, and he had said, "Beck, if you do not know, you do not touch. The wire does not care about your confidence. The wire cares about your knowledge." He is 52 years old, built like a utility transformer, square and grounded and impossible to move. He lives 4 blocks from my house because when I bought on this street, Loomis told me the neighborhood was solid and the schools were good and the power grid was well maintained, which from a lineman is the highest compliment a neighborhood can receive. The first week I worked under him, I watched him rewire a junction box in a thunderstorm without flinching, rain coming sideways, lightning hitting a transformer 2 poles down. Loomis worked the box with bare hands and didn't blink. When I asked him how he stayed calm, he said, "Beck, you work on live wires every day. You know what happens when someone cuts the wrong line. The power goes out. Not for you, for them. Remember that." I had carried that sentence for 9 years. Tonight I understood it completely. "Heard about the bike," Loomis said. His wife had seen the truck in my driveway from their kitchen window. Noelle drove Dad's truck over it. Dad told Cora she can walk. Loomis was quiet for 5 seconds. "What are you going to do?" "Cut 2 lines. 1 card. 1 door. The card is the insurance, and the door is the storage unit. The truck is in the storage unit? Not yet. I am going to move it there tonight, after I file the police report. The truck is the evidence. The storage unit is the vault. And I hold the key code. Your dad is going to lose his mind. My dad told my daughter she can walk. He can lose whatever he wants. Welcome back to Family Secret Tales. If you are the person your family calls for the money and the cosign and the storage unit and then tells your kids she can walk, hit subscribe. Because the card is coming out tonight and the door is closing. And by 7:09, and the only person walking will be the one who thought she could drive. I put Cora to bed at 8:30. She did not ask about the bike. She asked about the bell. Is the bell okay? The bell is fine. I have it. Can I have it back? You will have it back. I promise. She fell asleep with her soccer bag on the floor next to the bed and her cleats lined up by the door. The habits of a child who organizes her world, because the adults around her do not always organize theirs. I stood in the doorway for a minute watching her breathe. The bell was in my jacket pocket, the ladybug shape pressed against my thigh the way the bike key used to press against my hip when I walked her to school before the e-bike changed our mornings. At 9:15, I drove to my driveway. The F-250 was still there, front tire still on the crushed bike frame. I pulled the bike out from under the tire. The frame was folded at a 40-degree angle. The battery housing was cracked open and the lithium cells were exposed, which is a hazard I knew about because linemen deal with battery systems on utility poles and a cracked lithium battery can thermal runaway and heat. I set the bike in the garage away from sunlight and photographed it from 6 angles. The brass bell was already in my pocket. The bike was evidence now. Every angle, every crack, every smear of tire tread on the matte black paint was a sentence in a police report that had not been written yet, but would be written tonight. Then I got in the F-250. The cab smelled like Noelle's perfume and Vic's Pine air freshener. On the passenger seat, face up, was Noelle's phone. She had left it in the truck when she got out to knock on my door. And in the chaos of Vic's arrival, in the confrontation and the walk back to her car, she had not come back for it. The screen was locked, but a notification was visible on the lock screen, a text from Dad timestamped Tuesday at 4:47 p.m. The preview showed 4 words: use my truck. More, I picked up the phone. I pressed the notification. The phone was not password protected because Noelle had never protected anything in her life, not her credit, not her insurance, not her lease, and not the text thread that now opened in front of me. Noelle to Vic, Tuesday 4:41 p.m. He said no to camp. I'm going to teach him. Vic to Noelle, Tuesday 4:47 p.m. Use my truck. More weight. Noelle to Vic, Tuesday 4:48 p.m. Friday when he's home. I'll park right on it. Vic to Noelle, Tuesday 4:50 p.m. That bike is a joke. An 11-year-old doesn't need that. 4 texts. Timestamped, premeditated, my father had told my sister to use his truck because it weighed more. He had called my daughter's bike a joke. He had known the day, the plan, and the target, and he had ridden to my house in the passenger seat of Noelle's car to watch it happen. I screenshot every text. I saved them to my phone. Then I set Noelle's phone on the dashboard and drove the truck to Eastside Self-Storage. Her phone would be returned later. The screenshots would not. The gate opened on my code, 7782. I pulled the F-250 into Unit 14, a 10 by 20 climate-controlled bay with a rolling steel door and a padlock hasp I had installed myself. I parked the truck, locked the rolling door, and changed the gate code on the keypad from 7782 to 3309. The old code would no longer work. Vic would arrive in the morning, punch his numbers, and the gate would not open. And the truck that crushed my daughter's bike would be sitting behind a steel door in a unit rented to Beck, inaccessible to anyone whose name was not on the lease. I drove my own truck home. It was 9:50. Cora was asleep. The house was quiet. The driveway had a stain where the battery fluid had dried into the concrete. A dark oval the size of a dinner plate that I would scrub with degreaser in the morning, but that would never fully come out. Because battery acid etches concrete the way cruelty etches memory, permanently and without asking permission. I almost stopped there. The truck was locked. The evidence was preserved. The storage code was changed. The bike was in the garage. The bell was in my pocket. The night could have ended with a locked door and a morning phone call, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that Vic would arrive at the storage gate, punch his code, and find it dead. That would have been enough for most people. But the image of Cora standing in the hallway with her soccer bag stopped me. An 11-year-old girl hearing her grandfather say her bike was showing off. An 11-year-old calculating where she stands in a family that measures worth by need, not by effort. She would carry your kid can walk the way I carried Loomis's sentence about live wires. Except Loomis's sentence made me stronger. Vic's sentence made my daughter smaller. And a father who lets his daughter be made smaller by the man who dispatched the truck is not a father. He is a bystander. I was not going to be a bystander. At 10 p.m., I opened my laptop and logged into State Farm's online portal, Noel's auto insurance policy. Payment method, my Visa ending in 44T. I removed the card. The system confirmed the removal and displayed a message, no valid payment method on file. Policy will lapse if payment is not received within 24 hours. I screenshot the confirmation. One card. Removed. Then I logged into the Eastside self-storage account and confirmed the gate code change. The old code was dead. The new code was mine. One door. Closed. Then I called the non-emergency police line and filed a report for intentional destruction of property. I described the vehicle, 2018 Ford F-250, dark gray, registered to Vic Ryland. I described the property, Rad Runner Plus e-bike, matte black, purchased 5 months ago, retail $5,800, receipt available. I described the current location of the vehicle, Eastside Self-Storage, Unit 14, Broad Street, accessible only by the reporting party. I described the evidence, 6 photographs of the damaged bike, 1 photograph of the gas station receipt from the truck dashboard, and a screenshot of the text exchange between Noel and Vic, confirming premeditation. The officer assigned a case number. A detective would follow up Monday. 3 actions in 3 hours. 1 card removed, 1 door closed, 1 case filed. The bell was in my pocket. The laptop was on the table. The house was quiet, and my daughter was sleeping, and the driveway stain was drying in the dark. At 10:45, I pulled up my phone and opened the text thread between Noel and me. 3 days ago, Tuesday, the camp conversation, Noel. Beck, can you cover Trey's camp? Scioto Grove, $2,400 for the summer. Me, can't do it right now, Noel. I just paid for Cora's bike, and the insurance is due. Noel, you bought your kid a $5,800 bike, and you can't give your nephew $2,400 for camp? Me, I said I can't do it. Noel, unbelievable. You sit in that house counting your money while Trey has nothing. That was Tuesday. The e-bike was crushed Friday. 3 days between the ask and the retaliation. I almost went to bed. The card was removed. The truck was locked. The report was filed. 3 actions in 2 hours. 1 card and 1 door and 1 case number. But my phone buzzed at 11:15. A text from my ex-wife Marla, not about the bike. About something else. Beck, did Cora ever get the birthday checks I've been sending to Noel's address? I read the text twice. What birthday checks? I've been sending Cora $200 every birthday for 3 years. I mailed them to Noel's apartment because I didn't have your new address after the move. Noel said she would pass them to Cora. Has Cora mentioned them? Cora had never mentioned any birthday checks from Marla. Not once in 3 years. $200 per year. $600 total. Mailed to Noel's apartment. Never delivered. I almost called Noel. The number was right there, glowing on my phone at 11:20 at night, and the accusation was loaded and aimed and ready to fire. But the bell in my jacket stopped me. Brass. Ladybug. Cora's. The bell that survived the truck because bells are small, and trucks are careless, and small things roll out of the way of careless things if they are built well enough. The bell reminded me that tonight was not about yelling. Tonight was about documentation, and documentation meant saving Marla's texts, adding them to the case file, and letting the number $600 sit in the record next to the number $5,800 and the number $6,960 until Monday, when the lawyer could add them all together and present the total to a judge. At 7:09 a.m. Saturday morning, Noel's phone buzzed with an automated notification from State Farm. Policy lapse notice. Red banner across the top of the email. Your auto insurance policy has been suspended due to non-payment. You are not currently covered for liability, collision, or comprehensive. Driving without valid insurance is a violation of Ohio Revised Code 4509101. Noelle saw it at 7:09 because she always checked her phone at 7:09, the same time every morning, the alarm she set to wake Trey for Saturday cartoons. She opened the email. She read the red banner. And according to the voicemail she left me at 7:14, which lasted 47 seconds and contained 3 sentences and a sound that might have been breathing or might have been the beginning of something she could not finish, she started shaking. Beck, my insurance is canceled. The card on the policy is gone. I cannot drive. I have a job interview Monday. Beck, I have to drive to the interview. What did you do? She had a job interview Monday. She had not mentioned a job interview in the 3 days between the camp request and the bike destruction. She had not mentioned it when she drove a truck over my daughter's property. She mentioned it now because now was when the insurance mattered, and the insurance had mattered to me for 24 months while I paid $290 every month for a woman who had just shown me what my money was worth to her. Less than a $2,400 summer camp she did not get. I did not answer. Vic called at 7:40. Not about the insurance. About the truck. Beck, where is my truck? In storage. I changed the code. That is my truck. It is my unit, my rental, my code. And the truck is referenced in a police report as evidence. It stays until the detective clears it. You filed a police report on your own sister? I filed a police report on a crime. I'll be home all day Sunday if you want to discuss it in person. I hung up. The phone rang 9 more times Saturday. I did not answer. The bell sat on the kitchen table next to the phone, brass catching the light every time the screen lit up with a name I was not ready to speak to through a speaker. Some conversations need a front porch. Sunday would have a front porch. Sunday at 1 p.m., Noelle's sedan pulled into my driveway. Vic was in the passenger seat. Noelle got out first, slamming the door, walking up the path with the energy of a woman who had spent 36 hours without a car and without answers, and had driven here on a suspended insurance policy, which I noted and which the file would reflect. Vic got out slower. His face had the gray exhaustion of a man who had not slept, whose truck was locked behind a door he could not open, whose gate code no longer worked, and whose Saturday had been spent at the storage facility punching numbers into a keypad that rejected every combination he tried. I was on the front porch. The bell was in my pocket. Loomis was in his yard next door, not by accident, washing his truck with a garden hose and the studied casualness of a man who had been told to be visible at 1 o'clock. Give us the truck back, Beck. Noelle stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. Give us the code and drop the report. This has gone far enough. It went far enough when you drove a truck over my daughter's bicycle. It was a bike. A bike, Beck. You are treating this like I burned your house down. You destroyed $5,800 of my daughter's property. You stole $600 of her birthday money. And you texted Dad before you came and asked him for a heavier vehicle, and he replied, use my truck, more weight, because the two of you wanted to make sure the damage was total. Noelle's face changed. How do you know about that text? Your phone was on the passenger seat of the truck you left in my driveway. Unlocked. The text thread was on the screen. 4 messages. Time-stamped. Screenshotted. In the police file. Vic stepped forward. This is a family matter. You do not involve police in family. Family does not send text saying more weight about a truck aimed at an 11-year-old's bicycle. Family does not tell a child her bike is showing off. Family does not stand in a driveway and say your kid can walk like everyone else while their grandchild listens from the hallway. I came down 1 step. Let me tell you what this family matter costs. I held up my phone. The Notes app was open with every number I had spent on the Ryland family. 24 months of Noelle's car insurance at $290 a month. $6,960. 36 months of your truck storage at $175 a month. $6,300. The e-bike Noelle crushed. $5,800. 3 years of Cora's birthday checks that Noelle cashed and never delivered. $600. Total $19,860. That is what your family matter cost, Dad, and not $1 of it was ever acknowledged, thanked, or repaid. Vic's jaw tightened. I did not know you were paying the insurance. You did not know because you never asked. The same way you never asked what I earn, or what I build, or what my daughter rides to school, or why she rides it, or how she earned it. You did not ask because asking would have meant seeing the son who climbs poles as the son who pays for everything, and you were too busy calling me pole work to notice. Noelle's arms crossed. You cannot sue your own sister. I filed the small claims Monday. $19,860. 6 weeks. And the property destruction report is separate. Your text and Dad's text are both in the criminal file. Premeditated, conspired, documented. Noelle looked at Vic. Vic looked at the porch. Loomis turned off his hose. I looked at my father, the man who had stood in this driveway 2 days ago and told my daughter she could walk. You told my daughter she can walk. You said her bike was showing off. You texted your daughter to use your truck because it was heavier. You rode to my house in the passenger seat and watched the tire roll over the frame, and you got out and looked at it like a job completed. And then you told an 11-year-old girl that she deserved it because her cousin does not have as much. I took one more step down. You said my kid can walk. Your truck is locked behind a door I pay for. The insurance lapsed Friday. The lease cosign is withdrawn. Now you walk, Dad. Both of you. Walk. Vic's knees bent. Not all the way. A half bend, the kind that happens when a man's legs receive information his pride is still rejecting. He grabbed the porch railing. His hand shook on the wood. His face had gone the color of cold concrete, gray and flat and holding nothing. His mouth opened and no sentence came out, because the sentence he needed was I was wrong, and Vic Ryland had never said those words in 64 years, and his mouth did not know the shape of them. Noelle's arms dropped. Her chin trembled once. She looked at the driveway where the battery stain was still visible on the concrete, the dark oval where her truck had cracked her niece's bike open, and her eyes followed the stain the way a person's eyes follow evidence they cannot undo. This is the last insurance payment, the last storage rental, the last cosign. The last time I fund a single thing for a family that crushes what my daughter loves and tells her she can walk. Do not come to this house again. The next communication you receive from me will have a case number on it. I turned and walked inside. I closed the door. Through the window I watched Vic let go of the railing and walk to the car with the steps of a man who had just been told to do the thing he told his granddaughter to do. And the walking looked different on him than it had sounded when he said it about Cora. On Cora, walking was a punishment. On Vic, walking was a consequence. And consequences weigh more than punishments because punishments end and consequences compound. Loomis turned his hose back on. He did not look at me through the window. He did not need to. The porch had said everything. The fallout arrived in stages, each one heavier than the last. The insurance lapse meant Noelle could not legally drive. Her car sat in the apartment lot for 6 days like a monument to the difference between a card on file and a card removed. She took the bus to her Monday interview, a route that required 2 transfers and added 53 minutes each way to a trip that would have taken 12 minutes by car. She got the job. Starting pay, $14.50 an hour at a pet supply warehouse on the east side. First paycheck, 2 weeks away. Car insurance reinstatement without Beck Ryland's credit card, $340 deposit plus $315 month based on her independent driving record, which included 1 at-fault accident and 2 lapsed policies. She could not pay the deposit until the first paycheck cleared. The car sat. The bus ran. And the woman who had driven a truck over a bicycle because she did not get $2. $400 for summer camp was now spending $4.50 a day on bus fare because the credit card that kept her driving belonged to the brother she had punished. The lease cosign withdrawal was processed Tuesday. The apartment management company sent Noel a formal notice. White envelope, red letterhead. The kind of notice that property managers use when the financial structure of a tenancy has changed. Guarantor has withdrawn. Lease renewal requires independent income qualification at 3 times monthly rent. Rent, $1,175. Required income, $3,525 month. Noel's new job paid $2,320/month gross before taxes. She did not qualify. The management company gave her 60 days to find a qualifying guarantor or vacate. 60 days is not a long time when you have a 9-year-old son and a car you cannot drive, and a brother who is no longer answering your calls. The police report moved through the system quietly and completely. A detective contacted Noel on Wednesday at the pet supply warehouse. She confirmed she drove the truck. She said it was an accident. The detective showed her the text she had sent Vic. He said no to camp. I'm going to teach him. The detective asked her what teach him meant. Noel looked at the floor. The detective showed her Vic's reply, use my truck. More weight. The detective asked if her father had provided the vehicle with knowledge of her intent. Noel did not answer. The detective closed his notebook and said he would be in touch. The small claims filing went in Monday afternoon. Beck Ryland v. Noel Ryland, $19,860. Itemized, e-bike replacement $5,800. Insurance premiums paid $6,960. Storage rental paid $6,300. Stolen birthday checks $600. Filing fee $200. The hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. Noel was served Thursday at the pet supply warehouse during her lunch break. A process server walked into the break room and handed her the papers in front of 2 coworkers. She called me from the parking lot. You are suing me. The filing is itemized. Every dollar. The judge will see the texts, the police report, and the birthday checks. 6 weeks. She hung up. Cora walked to school Monday through Friday the following week. She left the house at 6:50 a.m. with her backpack on her back and her soccer bag over one shoulder and her cleats in a plastic grocery bag because the cargo rack that used to carry them was in a recycling bin behind the garage. The walk was 2.3 miles. She arrived at school at 7:28 a.m. 38 minutes of sidewalk and crosswalks and a stretch of Broad Street where the bus stop was empty because the bus did not come that early. She did not complain. She put her earbuds in and walked with the posture of a girl who had been told by her grandfather that walking was what she deserved, and who had decided to walk with her chin up and her bag straight because the walking was temporary and the chin was permanent. I drove behind her the first 2 mornings, 3 car lengths back, watching her cross intersections and check for traffic the way I had taught her. On Wednesday, she turned around at the corner of Broad and James and waved at my truck. She had known I was there the whole time. 11 years old, and she knew her father was behind her. I waved back. She turned the corner and kept walking. That was the morning I ordered the new bike. Vic's truck remained in storage for 11 days. On day 12, the detective cleared it as evidence after photographing the tire tread pattern and matching it to the marks on the crushed bike frame. I changed the gate code one more time, gave Vic the new code, and told him the unit rental was canceled effective the end of the month. Vic did not thank me for the 3 years of free storage. He did not apologize for the text message. He did not apologize to Cora. He drove the truck home and parked it on the street in front of his apartment where it collected 2 parking tickets in the first week. Because the street had alternate side parking rules, he had never had to learn because the truck had always been in Beck's storage unit. The tickets were $45 each, $90 in 1 week. He sat on the tailgate Saturday morning with a cup of coffee and the 2 tickets in his hand and the empty street in front of him, looking at the apartment building where his retirement was supposed to be comfortable and where comfort had always meant a son who quietly paid for the parts that did not fit. The storage unit that his son rented. The insurance card that his son funded. The co-signed lease that his son guaranteed. The things that kept the Ryland family running without anyone ever looking under the hood to see whose hands were on the engine. His son was the engine. And the engine had been pulled, and the truck that sat on the street with 2 tickets under its wiper had been the weapon used to destroy the engine operator's daughter's bicycle. And the irony of a truck with parking tickets was not lost on the street, even if it was lost on the man sitting on the tailgate drinking coffee from a mug his son had given him for Father's Day 3 years ago. A mug that said "World's Best Dad" in faded blue letters that Vic had never thought to question and now could not bring himself to read. Loomis came over Saturday afternoon with a socket set and a 6-pack of root beer. He had called Thursday and asked what Cora was riding to school. I told him she was walking. He was quiet for 3 seconds and then said, "I will be there Saturday with tools. You get the bike. I will bring the root beer." That was Loomis. He did not ask permission to help. He showed up with the right tools and the right drink and the understanding that a crew lead's job does not end when the shift does. We assembled the new e-bike in the garage. Same model. Same matte black. Same cargo rack, which I bolted on myself the way I had bolted the first one, checking the torque twice because the cargo rack held Cora's soccer bag and her backpack and the weight of an 11-year-old's daily life, and a rack that loosens is a rack that fails. And a father who builds things does not let things fail for his daughter. The dealer had given me a loyalty discount, $5,200 instead of $5,800. I had ordered it Wednesday morning, the same morning I filed the small claims paperwork. Because a father who handles the consequences should also handle the repair. And the repair was a bike, and the bike was Cora's freedom. And freedom should not cost an 11-year-old girl 6 days of walking, because her aunt wanted summer camp money, and her grandfather wanted to teach a lesson about what children deserve. Cora came out of the house when she heard the box opening. She stood in the garage doorway with the afternoon sun behind her and looked at the bike and looked at me and looked at Loomis, who was holding a pedal wrench and pretending he had not planned this moment for 3 days. "Is that mine?" "That is yours." She walked to the bike. She touched the handlebar. She looked at the bell mount, which was empty. "Where's my bell?" I reached into my jacket pocket. The ladybug bell. Brass, slightly scratched from the concrete but intact. I handed it to her. She held it in both hands the way a child holds a thing that has been returned to her from a place she thought it could not come back from. She clicked it onto the mount with both thumbs. She tested it once. The sound filled the garage the way small sounds fill large spaces when the space has been waiting for them. She looked at me. "Can I ride it?" "You can ride it." Cora climbed on. She adjusted the seat the way I had taught her. She checked the mirrors. She put her feet on the pedals and rolled out of the garage onto the driveway, past the stain where the battery fluid had dried into the concrete, past the spot where the old bike had been crushed, past the place where her grandfather had stood and told her she could walk. She rode down the street with the afternoon light warm on the matte black frame and the brass ladybug bell catching the sun the way it caught it the first time she rode the original bike 5 months ago. She rang it once at the end of the block, not 11 times like her birthday. Once, the sound carried back to the garage where Loomis and I stood with root beer and socket wrenches and the quiet that comes when 2 men who build things watch a girl ride away on something her father rebuilt. Because rebuilding is what linemen do. We repair what breaks. We restore what falls. And we do not yell, because the work speaks louder than the wire ever could. The bell rang once more as she turned the corner. Then the street was quiet, and the garage was warm, and the stain on the driveway was the only mark left from the truck. And stains fade, and bells do not. Welcome back to Family Secret Tales. If this story reminded you that the person who pays the bill holds the switch, share it tonight. Hit subscribe, drop a comment, and tell me, has anyone ever crushed something your child loved and called it a lesson? I will see you in the next one.